If you're just now waking up to the fact that we are now in a 2024 presidential election where President Trump is going for re-election against Kamala Harris, and you fear that the country is at stake, well, you would be correct. But if you don't know much about polling and you see things on the news or on the radio or even now on internet commercials where Kamala's coming over and saying what she's saying, and you don't know how she's doing, you think that Trump is actually losing this election and you're a little bit depressed about it. Well, this video should make you feel a lot better because as of right now, Trump is winning this election, and I'm going to show you all 50 states plus the District of Columbia and the margins of each and how he's doing, whether he's winning by X number of points or losing by X number of points. And we're going to show you exactly how he gets to 270 electoral college votes and beyond. So here we are. We're going to start with a blank map. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every single state, like I said before. So if you want to get down a piece of paper and write this down in the margins of what we think the election is right now. And so before we get into that, I want to share with you the polling data that we are leveraging. And what we're leveraging are polls that have been proven to be accurate going back to 2020 and 2022 as well in terms of the midterms. The most accurate poll right now when it comes to getting the 2020 election right was a group called Atlas Intel. They had a variance of 1.94%, which means they got the overall vote count off by a little bit under 2%. We're going to be framing it also with the Trafficker Group, with Rasmussen Reports, On Point Politics, which was the most accurate aggregate poll going back to 2020. And we are going to talk about Rich Barris and his People's Pundit, which is an extremely accurate poll. Polls like Quinnipiac, polls like ABC News, Washington Post, New York Times, Monmouth, Siena, these groups are garbage polling data that have not been accurate. So we're not even going to consider that. So what I'm going to do, again, is go through each state, and I'm going to go through it from left to right. And how we're going to tackle this is we're going to go through the Democrat states first. And as I go through them, I'm going to click them and give them a color coding. And that color coding is going to match whether it's a safe state for a candidate, likely for a candidate, and leans. And for the rules for today, I think I'm going to go with safe as anything above, let's say, 11. 11 points, I'm going to say, is going to be considered safe for any particular state. If you go down from, let's say, 10 all the way down to 5, I would say would be considered likely. Anything below 5 would be considered leans. So you got that right? So from anything above 11% is going to be considered safe. From 10 to 5, we're going to consider that to be likely. And anything below 5 points is going to be a leans, meaning that it's likely or the state's leaning to go in the direction of the candidate that we choose. So here we go. From left to right, we're going to start with Washington State. And right now we're looking at Kamala winning that by 13. So we're going to give that to her as a likely. Now it's come down to Oregon. That looks like 11 for Kamala. And we're going to give that also a likely, but that's going to be a safe. But that is really tight. So it's on the border there. And we're going to keep it safe for the rules that we put in place right now. California, that's going to be at 21 points for Kamala. That's going to be considered safe as well. Let's come down to Colorado. This could be considered in some people's minds a tighter race, but right now it's looking at 9 points. So at 9 points, we're going to give this a likely for Kamala to win Colorado. Illinois, out in the Midwest, right here, looking at 9 as well. We're going to give that as a likely for Kamala. Let's come over to Vermont. Vermont is going to be safe. 20-point win for Kamala in Vermont. Let's come down to New Jersey. That's a 7-point win for Kamala we're projecting, and that's going to be a likely. So let's come to New Jersey and give that a likely. Let's get the color right. All right. DC, you know for a fact that's going to be safe. DC is going to be safe. That's actually where I was born. And it's about as Democrat as you come. And if you're curious about the margin for DC, it's 77. And New Jersey would have been 7. Vermont would have been 20. And so let's keep going. Next state we're going to deal with is Massachusetts, another massively blue state. That is going to be at a margin of 23 for Kamala. Here we have Connecticut, another solidly Democrat state, but Connecticut is looking like a 13-point win for Kamala. So that's also going to be considered safe for Connecticut. Rhode Island, also 13. That's going to be safe for Kamala. If you're not unfamiliar with how states are scored, and I'm trying to keep this layman's, but the way it works, and it's a good time now to talk about it, is when you win the popular vote in a state, you get what they call electorates or electoral votes. And those votes are based on the population of your state and how many senators you particularly have for your state. So let's say like North Carolina has 16, which basically means there are 14 districts plus 2 Senate seats, giving you your 16 for your electoral college votes. That's how that works. And so if you win the popular vote in that state, you're going to get the electoral college votes for that state. And in order to win the presidency, you have to have 270. We saw this shake out in 2020. A lot of us became knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable, in our Constitution and how our process goes to nominating and actually electing a president. You're not actually voting for a president, you're voting for electors who go on your behalf to certify your vote with the state, which goes to Congress to be certified on, let's say, January 6th, like it was in 2020. So anyway, let's keep going. But the reason why I mentioned that is because now we're at Maine. And Maine is one of these states, there's 2 states that split their electoral votes, Maine and Nebraska. And these 2 states have 2 and 3, respectively, districts where they split their electoral votes. So for Maine District 1, that's going to be a safe district for Kamala, and we're going to give that to her there, and that's at a 13-point win for Maine District 1. Let's come to Maryland. That's going to be 25-point win for Kamala. That's going to be safe. Here we have Delaware, Joe Biden's stomping grounds. That's going to be a 11-point win for Kamala. Now, when you get down to 11, guys, now you're talking about this is leans or likely territory. Let's come down to New York. New York, believe it or not, is actually looking at 11 as well. There's a lot of problems with, if you're Kamala, that is, there's a lot of problems with white working class people. There's a big problem for you with Hispanic and Black working class people, especially in big municipals like, New York, like Philly, like Detroit. So these people, particularly the ones who are under 50, are fleeing the Democrat Party and going over to support Trump because many of them are disenfranchised of the party. They're not seeing any returns on their investment. They're being marginalized, and they don't see any way out other than to vote for the candidate of change, which would be Trump. So we're seeing that being reflected in some of these big blue territories like Jersey and New York, where we're seeing margins now as close as we've ever seen in my lifetime. So Hawaii is the next up. That's also going to be a sound, safe state for Kamala, and that's going to be at a margin of 17. So these are essentially all of the states where the Democrats are pretty much going to win for sure, or they're likely to win. It's not a good map for her. Right now, you see she's sitting at 191. She's got a long ways to go to get to 270. We haven't touched any of the Republican stuff yet, so we're going to do that right now. We're going to come again from the west to the east. We're going to start with Montana with 4 electoral college votes. That's going to be safe for Trump at a margin of 23. Then we have Idaho with 4 electoral college votes. That's going to be safe for Trump at 35. Now we have Wyoming at 3 electoral college votes. That's going to be safe for Trump at a margin of 49-point win. Utah, 27-point win. That's 6 electoral college votes for Utah. And let's come down to North Dakota. North Dakota is going to be safe as well at 39-point win for Trump. South Dakota, similarly, I'm getting ahead of myself, but let's go ahead and do that anyway. 33-point win for Trump in South Dakota at 3 electoral college votes. Actually, it's going to be the same for both North and South Dakota. It's going to be 3 electoral college votes. Nebraska, the Maine district, is going to be a 57-point victory for Trump. And that's going to be Nebraska, the Maine district. That would be safe for Trump as well there at 57%. Let's go ahead and go to Nebraska District 3. That's going to be 57 points for Trump as well. That's also going to be considerably safe. And let's just wrap it up with Nebraska District 2. Actually, we haven't done District 1 yet. So let's do District 2, then we do District 1. District 2 is where it's interesting because this is actually a leans right now, Trump. So for District 2, this is going to be a very light pink for Trump. It's at a 50 to 49% margin for Trump based on the aggregate of all these different polls that I mentioned before. So it could be a clean sweep right now for Nebraska. And District 1, finally, is going to be a 23-point win for Trump, and that's going to be safe as well. Next, we're going to bring in Kansas. That's going to be safe for Trump. This is going to be 6 electoral college votes. That's going to be a margin of 21-point victory for Trump. Oklahoma, one of our most conservative states, our most Trumpian states, at 7 electoral college votes. That's going to give Trump a safe win with 41-point margin. That's what we're projecting here. Let's come over to Indiana with 6 electoral college votes. That's also going to be safe, and that's going to be at a margin of 17. Missouri, 10 electoral college votes at a margin of 23 will be safe for Missouri, for Trump. For Arkansas, that's going to be 6 electoral college votes and safe as well for Trump at a 33% margin. Louisiana, a very independent state, very conservative state when it comes to voting for presidential elections. You're going to see a 27-point victory for Trump to win 8 electoral college votes. And right now we see Trump's up to 71. He's still considerably behind, but there's tons more states to come. Let's keep going. Indiana, for 11 electoral college votes, a 23-point victory for Trump we're projecting for Indiana. That will be safe. For West Virginia, another extremely Republican voting state, for 4 electoral college votes, 47% margin is safe for Trump for West Virginia. Ohio, a 15-point projection win for 17 electoral college votes for Ohio, and that would be, of course, safe. Now we have Alabama. It's going to be 9 electoral college votes. It's going to be a 35-point victory for Trump there. And Alabama is also going to be safe. Kentucky, right above it, a few states, at 8 electoral college votes, a 33-point spread we're projecting. And Kentucky is also going to be safe for Trump. Tennessee, one more state down, for 11 electoral college votes at a 33-point projection. We have Tennessee also being safe. Now Trump's at 131, Kamala's at 191. Let's keep going to Mississippi. 6 electoral college votes, a projection of 25 points in terms of victory, and Mississippi will be safe for Trump come election day. Now, let's get back up to the Northeast, Maine District 2. This is going to be a safe district for Trump at a margin of 17. And we have South Carolina. South Carolina at a margin of 21. We project that Trump will win 9 electoral college votes for South Carolina, making that safe. Alaska, traditionally conservative state, at 17-point margin for 3 electoral college votes. We project Alaska to be safe for Trump. Now, this is the last state coming up here that is a safe or strong lean for Trump. And this is going to be Texas. A lot of people talk about Texas, but a 15-point spread we project is going to be safe for Trump for 40 electoral college votes. Now, what we have now is the rest of these are all quote unquote swing states. And so what we're going to do now for the rest of these, we're going to go through the states that Trump will most likely win before the others. So his biggest margin on down to the ones that are tight and lean his way, or maybe lean the other way. All right, so let's go to Florida first. Everyone talks about Florida, but right now Trump is sitting at an 11-point victory in Florida, and I'm even calling that safe based on our rules. This would be the last safe state that we have. Everything else is going to be either leans or likely. All right, Georgia, a big one. Now let's talk about Georgia because that was a state that had a lot of, issues in 2020.
Understatement.
Georgia has become one of the most stringent states when it comes to election integrity and protections. Not to mention, the voter rolls have been cleaned up a lot in Georgia. There's a lot more Republicans voting in Georgia, and Georgia is not safe, but it is going to be a likely Trump, and even the Kamala campaign admits that based on internal polling that they actually had leaked out. It leaked out, and they were worried about Georgia in particular, and for that matter, they're worried about all of these states coming up from here on out. Next out west is Arizona, another state that had a little bit of problems in 2020, to say it very understatedly. Right now, we have it at a 7-point win for Trump in Arizona. One of the reasons why is because a lot of the McCain people have moved out. Again, in Maricopa County, in the most populous area in Arizona, is now registering Republicans like crazy. It also being on the border, I feel, being the state that really shares, other than Texas, its biggest percentage of the state to the border. It knows what's going on. Crime, the economy, the border are the top issues in this election, and that's going to show itself in Arizona, and a Trump victory at a 7-point margin, and that carries 11 electoral college votes. Let's come over to North Carolina out east, a huge state here. Trump should win this one by 7. He won it in 2020. He won it in 2016. In fact, even Mitt Romney beat Obama in North Carolina in 2012. And the General Assembly are controlled by Republicans, and they've done a lot to also further election integrity there. So expect to see a huge win for Trump in North Carolina. Let's come back out west to Nevada. Because Arizona, we're projecting them to win by a margin of 7. If Trump wins Arizona by 5, then it's going to most definitely include a Nevada win as well. Nevada, we're looking at 5. So we'll keep that right there at leans because we're at our 5 threshold. So everything here should be leans only. Next, we have Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania now, at the margin we last checked here, it's going to be a 5-point margin in Pennsylvania. A lot of things going on in Pennsylvania. They were trying to put in a provision to allow them to count ballots after the fact. I believe that was upheld by the Supreme Court. And there's a bunch of problems there. However, in Pennsylvania, the election roster, or the people who are eligible to vote, has come down tremendously. Scott Pressler in Pennsylvania has done a fantastic job out there, and he's flipping counties. He's registering people all over the place. He's going into gun stores and putting in signage there because a huge number of gun owners don't vote. So he's leaving no stone unturned, as is Turning Point USA, who's also helping the campaign get out the votes. And Pennsylvania right now is pretty strong for Trump, and expect him to win Pennsylvania by around 5 points. Wisconsin, another huge swing state. Polling is very difficult in Wisconsin, but the likelihood that Trump loses Wisconsin and he wins Pennsylvania is pretty slim, actually. Let's go to Wisconsin as well. That's going to be a margin of 5 for Wisconsin. Let's come down to Michigan. We're looking at a margin of 3 in Michigan for 15 points. Wisconsin's 10 points. Pennsylvania's 19 points. Nevada's 6 points, in case you didn't know. But the numbers are there on the screen, so you already can see that there. Now, let's come over to, these are all the states here that Trump is likely or is leaning to winning. And you see it up top, he is now sitting at 297, which is far above the 270 threshold to win the presidency. But we are not done because I didn't even cancel North Carolina yet. And North Carolina was 7, so yeah, that's actually going to be there. So now it's at 313 if you include North Carolina, which I forgot to actually include just there. So there you have it. It's at 313. There's a few more states, but all of these are Democrat states that are within the margin of error. For instance, Minnesota is at a -1 or a 1-point win so far, or leans for Kamala. So this can really go either way. And then you have New Mexico, which is at a 3 margin for Kamala, which puts that also at a lean. Let's come up to New Hampshire, a 1-point margin for Kamala in New Hampshire. And now you can see how Trump's number 317 could go up even higher. Now, let's go to Maine, the Maine district in Maine. That's at a 3-point margin projection for Kamala. So we're going to give this also a leans Kamala as well, leaving the last state, which I think is the most important state on this entire map. Forget Pennsylvania, forget Wisconsin, forget Florida, forget any of these states. Wisconsin, these don't matter. Arizona, none of these matter. Virginia, to me, is the most important state on this entire electorate. No one's talking about it because Virginia is a bellwether state, which simply means, bellwether means it is a representation of the country. And so if it happens there, you'll see an effect everywhere. And so with the fact that Virginia has an area up north called NOVA, which stands for the Northern Virginia area, is a very industrial, it's a very government, it's a very Democrat area. It's Fairfax, it's Arlington, it's Alexandria. It's these areas up there where it's very densely populated with liberals. But in the southern region, out to the east and to the west and to the south, it's not as much. But the north, the NOVA area, dominates. However, Trump is doing so well with many blacks. 1 out of 4 black men who are under 50 are going to vote for Trump. You have these people like Hispanics who are now going to Trump. You have independents who are going to Trump. The plethora of issues that are out there that concern citizens, Trump wins, I believe, 8 out of 10 of the top 10 issues. Trump is dominant on all of these in terms of the border, in terms of crime, in terms of foreign policy, all of these things. And the things that Kamala is big on, like abortion and Social Security, they're nominal. There's not a huge lead there. Whereas before it would have been a huge lead in one direction, but it's not. So the Trump campaign, based on their policies and their statements and what they did 4 years prior, because we're really dealing with a person who has shown us what he can do. That together leads people to give him the benefit of the doubt, or just believe him, or just they simply agree with him outright, taking away that charge from the left that he's going to be this kind of person that's going to come here and and do these bad things with your Social Security, with your abortion, so-called rights, and all that. But that's not the case this year. And so those margins are much smaller. And so his independent vote has skyrocketed over Kamala. And with that, I have said that if Trump can keep Virginia within the margin of error, he doesn't have to win it because it has so many Democrats in it, it's going to shape the rest of the country. So if it stays where I have right now at a -3 in terms of Kamala victory, that is tremendous. And so that alone, if that happens there, he's going to carry all those pink states that we have here. It'll go from a leans Trump to a solid Trump on election day. All right, so that's it. So you tell me what you think about this election projection. We won't do many more of these. We'll probably do one the week of the election to let you know where it sits right now. But right now, Trump is sitting pretty. You have Kamala Harris now begging Trump to do another debate, this time on CNN. Trump has already said, I'm not going to do any debates. And my question is for Kamala, if you won the first debate, like you're saying you did so much and so often, then why are you asking for another debate? Why? If I was Kamala and I dominated the way she says that she dominated, then she would not try and do another debate. What we do know is that whatever happened that day at the debate did not change anything. And a lot of these pundits out there, I'm not going to call them out here, but after the debate, I'm thinking about, I'll go ahead and say it, the people on the Blaze in particular were just hammering Trump. He lost the election. This is this and that. Like, dude, don't you follow Trump? Don't you know what he does? That it isn't the way he says things or how he says things. It's what he says and how it resonates with people who don't have a voice. And that is key. No matter how you say it, the fact that he put the issues that they care about into this public sphere, which has been out there for years now, is enough, because you just don't see it ever on the mainstream media. And the fact that you put it out there is enough for many people, because they feel like finally someone understands what we're going through, not some leftist word salad platitudes of, I'm from a middle class family and I want to be what I want to be, and you can be what I want to be. And this whole Marxist ideology just spewing all over her. And I'm gonna show you a video from my friend Chowder Jackson. I'll probably leave a link in the description below about that as well, about how what she says is straight out of the Communism Marxist book 101. So with that, guys, let me know what you guys think. Again, like and subscribe and share this with your friends. We'll do another one as we get closer to the election. I hope this makes you feel a little bit better of the election, and that you can see what you see now in the news about Kamala being up however many points is nonsense. And I'll have a video as to why that's the case. I won't do it here because it'd be adding too much to this particular video. But look for that video to come out in a few days of why this map that I just gave you guys is accurate.